Well, welcome to another 10X Homeschool Q&A. Excited to get into it. We're getting into the school year for most people a little bit. And what I'm finding or hearing, I don't know if you talked to any of your fellow homeschool friends or if anyone's just started, Mom, but I think we're in a phase where you're either kind of feeling like you're in the honeymoon phase and you're loving it and everything is going great so far. And then there's the other side of the coin, and there's some people who are feeling, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? Maybe a little bit of regret. So let's start off with the honeymoon phase. We'll take that one first. If I'm in the honeymoon phase or feeling like I am, how do I keep that going? Is it just a temporary thing and like the excitement's all temporary? Is that going to wear off? Or can I just keep that momentum, carry it all the way through?
That's a good question. Well, just think of the honeymoon phase in marriage. Did it last? No, there's always ups and downs, and it will continue that way. And it's great if you're still in the honeymoon phase. Um, we just started 2 weeks ago. I will say I've learned after 20 years that the beginning few weeks never go the way I think they will. I'm a dreamer. So I always have a vision in my mind of how it's going to go. Some people are more practical. And I can tell you that there isn't one year it's gone the way I thought it was going to go. However, because I've been doing it so long, I'm aware of that, and it gets a little easier to realize that it's not going to go that way. I would say if things are working, whatever's working, stick with it. Um, if it's not working, if you've already run into bumps in the road, you're like, this schedule isn't working or this curriculum isn't working, I would say to maybe keep trying it just a little longer, because I used to get so defeated at first, and I would, you can probably attest, I would change what we were doing or think, oh, well, it's the curriculum. It's not working for this child. And they're upset, or someone's angry about this, or we're dealing with behavioral issues because we haven't done anything all summer, or maybe you pulled your child out and they're just not used to being home. So just try to keep plugging away and being consistent at it. But I would say maybe after a month or two, if there's something that's really not working for you, to maybe reassess whether that's maybe your kids need to have a little downtime in between, a little more games in between a class, go for a walk. Sometimes there's just minor tweaks you have to make, and it's not about changing the whole curriculum. But
Yeah, that's great. I was gonna ask if you had like a rule of thumb, kind of how long to test something before you switch it up, because obviously we don't want to switch it up all the time for
yeah,
sanity of our kids and ourselves. So
yeah,
that's
I
good.
did that a few times, and it was probably not the best idea.
Yeah, live and learn. So safe to say that, I mean, we don't want to be pessimistic, but it's unrealistic to think that that level of excitement and just all in is not going to stick with you through the whole year. But that's just to say, don't be discouraged when you have those days where it's
Yeah,
not the honeymoon phase. And if it isn't the honeymoon phase for you right now, or you're feeling some regret, give it another couple weeks before you start
yeah,
switching things up. Does that sound?
good old good old school try. Yeah, it's a little hard. It can be a little deflating at first to feel like, okay, well, I've had this all planned out. Or sometimes I've done so much research, and why isn't this all meshing? And especially with maybe lots of children. But a lot of times it's just kind of getting used to getting back into a schedule. People are getting used to waking up earlier and starting things earlier, and not just having maybe all the free time they had before. And something else before we move on to maybe another question that I'll just put out there that I was very unaware of, but seasoned homeschoolers can attest to, is that you are going to hit, especially if you do not live maybe in the state of California or Florida, the winter doldrums roughly around January, February, and you will be tempted to think that it is the curriculum. And that is pretty much every year when I kind of oh no, this isn't working and things are falling apart and we must have to change this and this and this. And it's just part of homeschooling through the winter. You kind of get through the holidays. You can work a lot of school around the holidays and tie things together. And then winter kind of goes a little longer than you think it's going to go. And things kind of get your housebound and everybody's kind of at each other's throats. So just be aware that that's a very real thing in the homeschool world, that winter comes along and things just kind of get stagnant maybe a little bit. And that can be a good time to maybe change up the routine a little bit. Whereas in the winter, maybe you want to throw in an afternoon walk after some classes or something. But again, I would caution that you need a whole curriculum overhaul at that point. Just know that for some weird reason in the universe, it just becomes really difficult in the winter. But I would just say, just keep pushing through, maybe read more books, cozy up by the fire, have some hot chocolate and cider, change a few things, but just know that will happen.
That's a really good warning and a good heads up. Probably worth revisiting here in a couple months to
Yep.
remind everybody. You can have the classic "I told you so" moment, but yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's get into maybe a little bit more of where the regret or feeling of what am I doing is stemming from. So, uh, what do I do if I Alyssa was telling me about something that she listened to the other day that basically was talking about not focusing so much on the academic achievements or progress of your kids, but really the relationship that you're building with them, right? Which is, I think,
Yeah.
super great advice. And said specifically, like, learning to delight in your child and their development and what they're learning. And so, what do I do if I am just not feeling that fulfillment? Like, I can't seem to find that delight in my kid. It's work. Like, I'm sitting down, I'm trying to do this curriculum or this activity with my child, and I'm just not, it's not, I'm hearing all these other parents and moms talk about how great it is and these cool experience they're having, how filled they're feeling, and I just am not feeling that way.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me?
Well, we are human, so there's number one. And everything's going to ebb and flow. I definitely agree. Focus on how the relationship is going. If you just judge what you're doing by the fruits of, oh, how much academically does my child know, especially compared to everyone else, I know that it can be very tempting and very first nature to compare to what everybody at school is learning. And even in the homeschool realm, it can get really difficult not to go, oh my goodness, this family sits down, they're very formal, they learn Latin, their kids know the etymology of all the words, and we're not studying Latin, and oh no, maybe we should be doing that too. Or this family is so into music and they travel and perform together and we don't do that. And so just try really hard not to compare. And I would say that this definitely goes back to knowing your why. Again, I talked about this earlier, but if you don't know why you're homeschooling, it's going to feel like a dauntless task. It's not going to be very joyful because you're going to lose sight of what you're doing. And there were many times when I would think I was teaching more the curriculum than I was enjoying and savoring in the experience with the child. So that can be really hard. It's also natural to not enjoy every single moment with your child. Um, it can be tiring. Sometimes you just want some space to think your own thoughts, or sometimes you want a day where you just dive into your own interests and aren't feeling like you have to teach what you think your child needs to know. And if you're having a day like that, I'd say dive into your interest and share it with your kids sitting on the couch. Maybe they need a break too. Maybe they just need to play some games on the floor or have a little, picnic on the floor or outside. And you're sitting there near them. So you're not apart from them. And you're having aha moments on something you're studying or you're interested in, and you just once in a while share that with them. But I think that as long as you're having an overall joyful experience, not every moment is going to be amazing and awesome and fun. And I think, just again, to caution anybody who maybe just pulled their children out or isn't used to being around their child a lot, just remember that detox phase is going to take a while. Sometimes when you pull your kids home, especially if you have children that aren't used to listening to parents, they're going to be a little rebellious. They're going to test you and think, okay, is mom really committed to this? Or I miss my friends, or you're not the teacher, you're not the authority figure I'm used to listening to. And so there's going to maybe be some pushback. And if that's the case, again, I would work on relationships through what are the child's interests. Maybe it's a sport, maybe it's games, maybe it's reading together, going to the library, going on field trips. It doesn't have to look like we have to sit down and get through this list of things we have to do. Sometimes you're just going to have to deviate a little bit until the relationship is healed or the listening is better. And that's okay. Because in the end, don't we want functional adults that can handle hiccups and bumps than mechanical people that just work through things mindlessly?
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. I Defining your why, it sounds so cliche and I feel like it gets repeated so much, but if you really are focused in on that, we talk about so many things specifically here with 10x homeschool about making the homeschool experience more individualized, making the curriculum more individualized. We kind of feel like, yeah, there's not really a one size fit all approach. And I feel a lot of customization that we kind of
Yeah.
purport. And so that leaves a lot of people wondering, how do I even begin to customize curriculum? I just need to know exactly what to do and read it out of a book. Or how do I begin to customize this or that? Well, it actually stems from the why. You have to let your why be infused into the day and into the curriculum and if you're in that moment that's like, I feel no fulfillment right now, just reading this curriculum out of a book to my kids and having them do this activity. Well, just take a moment to question if what you're reading aligns with your why. And
Yeah.
and if it doesn't, then pick a different activity for that moment.
Yep.
Or find a way to make those two align. But if you really have a passion for what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you're clear on that, you'll be able to make it that joyful, fulfilling experience. Doesn't mean it doesn't take work, but you have to
Right.
let your why infuse all those little day-to-day things. I also liked what you said about not comparing, and the why obviously helps with that, but it just made me think like there's so many people that compare, how public schools are tracking to homeschoolers, but when you mentioned like other homeschoolers that are way ahead, it just it's a great point because for every kid out there that's leaps and bounds ahead of another kid the same age, there's one that's leaps and bounds ahead of him or her, right?
Right.
There's
Right.
gonna be always a smarter kid,
Yeah.
academic,
Yep.
right? Like there's, oh yeah, okay, great. Your kid can, read a year or two before he should. And then there's another kid out there that's the same age as your kid who already
Yeah.
graduated high school. So
Right.
it's like if that's the measure, then you're never going to be happy or feel fulfilled. And so it can't be the measure. So
Yeah. It's
I
so
like
true.
that. Okay, so let's say I am just still overwhelmed. I can't even, I just can't, right? Like,
Yeah. You're losing your mind.
am I just ruining my kid if I just send him to school for 1 year so that I can get my footing and just return to this next year?
That's a good, tough question. And, to bring the spiritual aspect of homeschooling that I have relied so heavily on, that is where prayer, sincere prayer, is the most valuable. I mean, it's valuable throughout. It's been valuable throughout my entire homeschool experience. It's what led me to officially make the decision to homeschool. I could not have done it and still can't do it without prayer because I don't know what I'm doing. These are God's children more than they're even mine. Um, and right now, again, I have a 15 and 13-year old. I'm still homeschooling, and the prayers now are a little different than when they were 3 and 5 and 7, but it's still, you know what they're going to need, you know what they're going to do. Help me, and then I invite them to even pray. Help them to realize what it is they need to do, because I want them to be as vested as I am. Now, with aspect to should I throw them back in, that is such a personal decision. Your story specifically, we went to pull you out after second grade, and we felt really good about it. All the rest of the kids had come home, and we just got this feeling the night before your officially school was going to start that it wasn't time to bring you home yet. And we were all devastated. I can remember all of us crying together in the room as we all realized it wasn't time to bring you home yet, which, with everything I know and have experienced with homeschool, I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, don't generally feel like there's ever a time when public school is going to be better for your child than bringing them home. But for some reason, I mean, I learned over time that I wasn't prepared to have you specifically home yet, because there were things I needed to learn so that when you came home, I was prepared for you. And so, again, that was through a lot of prayer. And wow, our Heavenly Father knows us so well that He knew I needed to understand some things so I wouldn't strangle your neck when you came home. Um, but that's such a personal decision. I would definitely pray about it, think about it. If by any means, if your child's in a bullying situation or being taught something that totally goes against your beliefs, I would say bringing them home and just letting them tinker around with kiwi crates, Legos, playing games, going on field trips is still better than sending them to school. If it does take a while sometimes, especially if you're new at it or you have multiple children to juggle, it can be completely overwhelming to figure out how to customize everything. And if you're that overwhelmed, just do the things that bring you joy as a family. Your child, and I'll slip this in real quick, I don't have references, but in my reading over the years, something that people don't realize is that middle school was created to keep children in school longer to make more money. If you think about it, in the farming times, children were pretty much finished with school by the age of 14. Children didn't formally go to school till around 8. They finished at 14 and became apprenticeships or went to college at 14. And with the Industrial Revolution in America and the factories and the way we wanted to train children, junior high was, middle school is created to keep them and stretch out the school experience longer. So if you're worried about your child falling behind, I know it's really hard to trust and believe, but don't worry. They're going to be okay. Their mind's developed. They understand abstract things better. There are things they will grasp faster as they get older. So if you're worried about that, try to trust me. Try not to worry.
Yeah, this one's hard because obviously there's some strong feelings and we may be a little biased, but I agree that it's a very personal decision, but there are very few situations where another year of public school is going to be better for your kid than just keeping them home.
Yeah.
And
Even behaviorally.
right, and I think like the only reason possibly one of the only scenarios where a kid would do better at school than at home is like borderline CPS type stuff. I mean, you got to be failing on a pretty
Yeah,
major level as a parent for home to
right.
be worse. And the danger I see of sending the kid to school for just another year is 1 year becomes 2 years. It
Hmm. It's
becomes
just easier.
and you will not, in most cases, end up bringing them back home.
Yeah,
You're gonna get
unfortunately, that's
used
true.
to a certain lifestyle of not having your kid around, and it's gonna be very hard to go back. And so that's my biggest caution is prayerfully consider that decision. Know that however you may feel, it'd be pretty hard for you to do worse. And
Yeah,
and I know that's gonna be a big point of contention for a lot of people who have a lot of faith in the public school system. But there, like, what is there really to be gained there for your kid? I mean, at the end of the day, like I
couple
said,
more facts.
unless you are truly failing on an actual emotional
Parental level. Yeah,
parental level, you will not do worse at home. You can't.
yeah, it's
You can't.
impossible.
It is not the system that is teaching your kid. Your kid is out there learning on their own,
Yeah.
really.
Well,
And
that's true because anything they really end up retaining from school is because they put forth the effort to memorize it or internalize it. It still isn't, I mean, that's just exposure to information and oftentimes not information we want them exposed to.
I,
So, yeah, totally agree.
well, on that note, let's uh let's wrap it up here. Let's recap. Okay, so wherever you're at right now in your new school year, whether you're honeymoon phase or feeling a little bit of regret, it's probably not a permanent emotional state. There's going to be ups and downs. If you're down, stick it through for at least a month or two before you make any drastic changes. If you're up, just that's great. Keep it going. Brace yourself because there's probably the down coming at some point, and
Yep.
that's totally normal. But when it comes to dealing with those downs and feeling fulfillment, the why, like we can't stress it enough. You have to have your why. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously, you had a why at one point because here you are, and it's amazing how easy it is to lose sight of that. But if you have lost sight of it, go regain sight of it, write it down, look at
Yes.
it every
Right.
day if you have to, but get that crystal clear and let that why infuse your day-to-day activities, your curriculum. If you're in a moment that is feeling dull and sluggish, or we're in the winter, I guess we gotta keep an eye out for the winter here in a couple of
Even
months.
I
Just take a moment, just stop everything, look at the why, evaluate the current activity or what's happening right now, and are they aligned? And if not, get those two reconciled and then keep moving forward. And just if you really, really need a break or feel like you need to get it, regain your footing, just think and pray long and hard before you actually send your kid back to public school for another year.
yeah.
Because you're probably doing way better than you think.
That and you're really in the end causing more work for yourself if you do ever intend to bring them home. You are just creating more detox time. You're adding to that time. You're adding to your child not valuing you as an authority figure. It really does create unseen problems that you're not going to want to deal with if you choose to bring them home again. So I would be very cautious with it. And I would just say, if you're a homeschool mom like me, stock up on some good smelling candles and hot chocolate and a
Yeah.
nice cozy blanket now. And then when the winter comes, you'll thank me.
Yeah. No, that's good advice. Definitely. Well,
Well, keep at it. Plug away.
yeah,
You can do it. You can do it. You're their parent. You can do it.
Stick with it. Yeah, and again, on a I'm gonna take it back to a spiritual note, but for those of you secular people out there, you can forgive me, but uh, God entrusted you with these children, not just to get them to 5 years old and send them off.
Yep.
Right. And if that's where you're at and that's what you have to do, everyone has different life scenarios. Like there's no judgment, but that should be the biggest confidence booster for you in your homeschool journey is that you have these kids and he's entrusted them to you. And so just don't be afraid to embrace that responsibility and know that he's on your side and he will help you to do what you need to do to make sure that they have the skills that they need to thrive when they leave the home. So,
Yep. Amen.
yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again for tuning in. Thanks, Mom, for the
Yep.
amazing answers and insights as usual. And we will see
Good
y'all next
luck.
week.
Okay. Sounds good. Good luck, everybody.
Okay. Have a good week. Take
All
care.
right. Bye.